Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny, and I'm joined by.
Kenny squared.
This is the Sports on a Positive Tip podcast where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. What do we got going on the show today, Kenny?
Big obviously NBA weekend. We're gonna recap last weekend and then also look forward to divisional round.
NFL.
Definitely talk some
I
Giants
think
in
you said
there.
NBA, but NFL. NFL,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I mean,
NFL.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure there's some
NFL.
big NBA games too, but NFL.
Yeah, it's all NFL right now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and also talk Hall of Fame gets announced this week, so
yeah.
we'll talk about that coming up here. Carlos Correa, the saga is finally over. I want to talk a little bit about how annoying it's been, but also kind of want to get your reaction to that. And
Yeah.
last but not least, some NBA action. Actually, NBA action. So
All
let's
right.
get into this.
All right, let's get it. All right. Well, welcome back, folks. This is Sports on the Positive Tip, and I'm joined by my partner. Well, I won't even say his name. I'm joined by my partner.
Kenny squared.
There you go. Let's jump right in. It's been a couple of weeks for me. I was on vacation, and I'm so glad to be back. And a lot of big things happened while I was gone. Well, especially the Carlos Correa thing. We'll get into that in a bit. But also the NFL regular season ended, and I wanted to get your quick take on something, and that was the Browns finished, I believe, 7-10. And what's the feeling like there in Cleveland? Certainly, that was disappointing. They're on the outside of the playoffs. Maybe they made some progress with Deshaun Watson. I don't know what was the mood like there in Cleveland when the regular season ended.
It's kind of like any other season, except for like the 0-16 season.
Cool.
That was an interesting ending.
Yeah.
But just kind of like, oh well, we missed the playoffs again.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot more hope going into the 2023 season. You look at like Deshaun Watson having a full off season, getting him some time to adjust to the playbook and everything like that.
Yeah.
Giving him a full preseason, I think he'll kind of. I mean, he has been out of the game for 2 years, so I think kind of giving him that time to even at the beginning of the year, like kind of get everything together, I think will be a big deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Also, the Browns did fire their defensive coordinator and hired Jim Schwartz, which I think is a good hire.
Former head
I'm kind
coach,
of
right,
curious to
of
see.
the Lions. Yeah, Jim Schwartz. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's an interesting move. I think it's good because Browns defense, I think, was for whatever reason not as strong as it should have been. Myles Garrett still um, did pretty well,
Yeah.
but like everybody else, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's going to be interesting. Is there some excitement there for the Cavs?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I
Okay.
think once like April hits and they're actually like in the playoffs, I think you'll start to see that excitement.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Well, we'll follow the Watson stuff. We'll follow obviously the Browns because you're out there. And it's such an interesting team with a world of talent, but you never know, they can lose some folks to free agency. These windows of opportunity in every sport really close quickly. It's really hard to maintain, for several years, being a contender. So we see that with the NFL too, and we see teams come up and come down. Um, what was some of your overall thoughts? I know that we're 5 days away from the last playoff games of last weekend, but did anything stand out for you? Obviously, the Jaguars and had the historical comeback against the Chargers, which was stunning. But I think that to me and the Tom Brady game, which was awful. I mean, it was awful from a lot of different perspectives, but especially from the Tampa Bay perspective, those were the things that stood out, and the Dallas kicker, unfortunately. But those things stood out for me
Oof.
over the weekend. What stood out for you? Well, I should say, I know what stood out for you. It had to be the Giants, but other than that, and you can talk about the Giants. So give us a recap of the wild card weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start out real quick with the Giants. I think they kind of showed that. Well, first of all, Minnesota's defense was awful. I believe they had the worst defense of any team with as good of a record as they had. Because like usually you'll see a couple teams every year They have a really good record, but you don't really like leaving them. I think of a couple years ago with the Steelers when they started out 11-0 and they got destroyed by the Browns in the wild card weekend. Every year you'll have like a couple teams that are like that where like they have a really good record, but then you kind of know they aren't going to win a playoff game. I feel like there was a lot of people saying that with Minnesota.
Yes.
But I think one of the biggest things is you kind of have looked at the last few weeks, and Daniel Jones has actually looked pretty good. Um,
Yes.
I think he's really kind of secured himself to be the quarterback for at least the next few years here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say for the next 10 yet, but I think he's kind of shown he can, like, he's definitely earned at least another few years in my book. Also, I think one of the bigger, like, obviously the big comeback from Trevor Lawrence, first playoff game for both him and Herbert. I think it's a big win for them. I don't think it's as much on the Chargers, and like part of that is like they really and oh gosh, I think it was Tony Dungy that said it, like, you're up 27-0. Got to keep running the ball. You got to kill the clock. And it didn't seem like they were doing that.
No.
So I don't know if that's a game planning thing. I don't know if that's a adjustment type of thing, but I feel like that's something that they should have worked on.
Yeah.
But I mean, Trevor Lawrence has shown like it's really hard to come back from having 4 interceptions in the first half to come back 27-0 down to win. It takes a lot of stamina. It takes a lot of guts to do that. So I think he's kind of showing that he's the real deal. Looking at some of the other games, I think kind of like what you said, Tampa Bay looked really flat, which I've heard this from a lot of different people. Like, oh well, the Bucs are just doing bad because Tom Brady wants to throw everyone off and make this crazy Super Bowl run. It just seems like this team's really flat. But also, I can't really understand why. I'd seen last year Tom Brady and that offense was second in the league. And Tom Brady was also second in MVP behind Aaron Rodgers. Yet this year they were 8-9 and only in a dreadful division, which is the only reason why they made the playoffs. I don't know what happened between this year and last year. Tom Brady doesn't look that much older.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll also say this with Tom Brady. I'll be surprised if he plays with the Bucs next year. I think he's probably going to be somewhere else. Vegas seems like a nice place because he's got his buddy Josh McDaniels there.
Yeah.
Maybe San Francisco. Maybe he wants to do that. I want to play where I grew up, at least for a year. But also, I don't know if the 49ers are going to want him.
No.
So
yeah, I don't think so.
So I think it'll be interesting. I think also I don't know if the Jets would go after him, but the Jets would be a pretty decent fit because he's got good weapons and a good defense there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather see the Jets go Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo, but
same here.
So, but what I didn't hear you say, you don't think he'll retire then?
No, I feel like he's one of those guys that like he doesn't want to go out like that. But also, I forgot where I heard it. Someone said like, "Oh, do you remember Joe Montana's last game? Do you remember a lot of these guys like, unless it's like Peyton Manning or John Elway, most of these guys don't retire as Super Bowl champions anyway. Like most people retire and it's time for them to go.
Yeah.
Derek Jeter didn't retire hoisting the World Series trophy.
Yeah.
So like, I wouldn't be surprised if he retired, but I feel like he still wants to play another year. Also, like if he like did all of this and then still got divorced and then just retired at the end of the year anyway, like the whole divorce thing would have been just dumb to me. I mean, I know there's probably other reasons why he got divorced, but
Yeah.
football was the main reason.
Yeah. So what do you think it was in that game? Was the Bucs that bad or were the Cowboys that good?
I think the Cowboys are just that good.
Wow. Okay.
I said this before to a couple of my friends, and this was a few weeks ago because you know how the Cowboys season tends to go in roller coasters.
Yeah.
I said that the Cowboys, when they're at their best, are very, very hard to beat.
Yeah.
They have an excellent defense. They have excellent running game. Dak Prescott, when he's not throwing interceptions, is really good.
Yeah.
Now, I think to me, the most intriguing game this weekend is probably Dallas and San Francisco. Not just because it has the
Yeah.
old school vibes, but like
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, I could see either of these. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these teams won.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I said that early in the week that I thought that Cowboys 49ers, that is just going to be a great game. And it's great I'm glad you mentioned old school vibes. So 90s and thousands, man, that was the game. Then it kind of flipped over to Patriots and Colts being the matchup of the year that everybody looked forward to. But there was probably about a 5, 6, 7 year period almost that everyone looked forward to Cowboys Niners. I tell you, what I really like about Trevor Lawrence. Go back to him for 1 second, and then I definitely want to hear more on the Giants here. Trevor Lawrence is such what's the word I'm looking for? He's such a calm, cool dude. Like he never gets too rattled. Like he didn't look like a guy who threw 4 interceptions. He was just all right. We'll get the next one. We'll get the next one. And nothing symbolizes that more than after this historic comeback win, they went to Waffle House and celebrated him and a few people. And somehow somebody catches that on video and of course sends it out. But I don't know that the Jags can handle the Chiefs. I mean, they're one of those teams. The Chiefs have been one of those teams that not many people talked about this year because they've been just so consistent over the last 5 years or so. But man, oh man, that is a team that is up and coming, and Trevor Lawrence is definitely now starting to live up to the hype of coming out of Clemson and how calm he was in those championship games back when he was there. I tell you, it is going to be interesting. That's going to be an interesting team to watch over the next couple of years, and it's going to be an interesting team. They got nothing to lose, right? So it's going to be an interesting team to watch on Sunday as well against the Chiefs. All right, let's see. How can I just say this? The Giants got a shot here or what? I mean, the Eagles were 14-3. They're formidable. Are the Giants on one of these team of destinies runs that we've seen in the past with the great leadership? And I'm loving how Barkley is playing. I'm loving how Daniel Jones is playing. I totally agree that the Giants would be foolish now to give up on him. They've invested all these years in him, and he's turning a corner. We've talked about that, you and I, how especially at the quarterback position, some people need more time to develop, and he seems like he's right in his zone right now. Is this a team of destiny, Kenny?
I'm gonna say yeah. I'm sticking with my team. I think that I'm gonna call the upset, and hopefully I'm not like completely off there. But when I look at this team, first of all, I'm gonna lay out a few stats here. I mean, obviously, it's a whole different year, whole different era, but the Giants haven't lost to a number one seed in the playoffs since 1990.
Oh,
Which is kind of crazy because, like, I think of 2014, no, 2012 when they came to Green Bay and beat them.
wow. What a memory that was. Yes.
Yeah. Also, the obvious 2008 run where they ended up beating the Patriots. They also beat Dallas, who was excellent that year.
Yep.
So that's kind of something going for them. Also, the Giants have been feast or famine in the playoffs for the last several years. Either they don't win a game in the playoffs or they win every game in the playoffs. Well, like I said, obviously different regime and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a couple things that might be going the Giants' way. It's not a big sample size, so I'm not going to say it's definitely what happens. Last year, both the number one seeds fell in the divisional round. There might be something to having that bye that can kind of get to you. The next thing that I think really sticks out to me is, yes, the Eagles have had an excellent season. I think that you look at what they've done, it has been amazing. It has been borderline historic.
Mm-hmm.
But Jalen Hurts has been hurt, no pun intended, the last couple weeks. And it's one thing to you have an injury to your legs, ribs, or you've had to deal with a concussion or anything. But he's had an injury to his throwing shoulder. Also, this Giants team week 18, like it took them a failed onside kick to lose to the Eagles. So like, and the Giants had nothing to play for.
Yep.
They played Davis Webb out there and all of their B and C guys. So I'm just kind of curious to see how this is going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants got blown out. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, they're definitely going to win, but I am going with the Giants this weekend.
Yeah.
There's always like one random upset that you're like, where did that come from? Giants also haven't won in Philly, I think, since 2014.
Wow.
I think I saw.
Wow.
But also, it's really hard to beat a team 3 times in a single season.
No
Um,
doubt. No doubt.
so I think that the Giants might be able to play well. I think the biggest thing is going to be, can the Giants defense make a big play?
Yeah.
Can they cause an interception at a crucial moment? Because like you look at where a lot of games slip in the playoffs, it's usually like an interception in the red zone. I think where the Dallas Tampa Bay game flipped was that interception in the end zone where
Oh my
a
God.
7-6 lead for Tampa turned
Yeah.
into a 12-0 lead for Dallas.
Yeah.
So you need that type of swing. Because Philly is a good team. They've got a great defense. They've got a great roster. But also, like, I trust in Brian Daboll. He's done an excellent job in calling a great game. Daniel Jones has felt a lot more confident. Saquon Barkley is healthy and gashing right through the lines there. So we'll see.
Yeah, and you've got Tom Thibodeau. I'm sorry, Savon Thibodeau on the defense, who has just been unbelievable. I mean, dare I say, there's been some games he looks like Lawrence Taylor. I mean, so that defense has been great as well. I listen. Who knows, man? On this, this is a tough one because Jalen Hurts reminds me a lot of Trevor Lawrence in this sense that he was this great college player, and then his college career gets interrupted by someone named Tua. And he's a gentleman about everything. He's a kid, obviously. And he just puts himself in the transfer portal. And then he has this year at Oklahoma where he finishes second in the Heisman Trophy balloting, where he could have easily won it. It was just a couple of votes he lost it by. And no one was giving him a shot really in the NFL that he was going to be this type of quarterback in the NFL. And now he's got this injury, though, that has hindered him, especially if a quarterback with his throwing shoulder. Trouble is that he's so strong. So I think he recovers from injuries, very well. Have you seen those videos where he bench presses like 600 pounds, and he was doing this like since he was in college, he's just this unbelievably strong guy. Now the Eagles have a lot of weapons too, right? But they also have the other Heisman Trophy winner as their wide receiver. But he's just been okay in the NFL so far. I don't know. I mean, you're looking at two coaches that really don't have any playoff experience at the head coach level. But if I look at almost everything is equal, even though they had a 14-3 record, I give the Giants the edge because of the coaching. The Giants just seem to have this game plan where they adjust. You just talked about how the Chargers didn't adjust with the Jaguars in this big lead. They probably just went with their game plan. Okay, we're going to continue to throw. We've got Keenan Allen. We've got all these great receivers. Whereas that the Giants seem to adjust. They really did that, I thought, with the Vikings. And so, I would say I got to give the edge to the Eagles because of the regular season, but the Giants just might be on this special run. I asked you this through text, I think. The moment, or maybe it was when we spoke, your wide receiver, Slayton, when he dropped, it was right in his chest. And that would have sealed the game, right? And he drops the pass right in his chest. He's devastated. And he doesn't want to see anybody on the sidelines. And, some coaches sometimes will do stuff because they know the camera's watching. I think your coach is definitely not like that. He's just a raw dude. But what was the first thing you saw him go over? He took his headset off and he spoke to him and he shook his hand, brought it in. I mean, little moments like that mean so much, right? because again, this poor game, if they had lost that game, he would have been blaming himself for the loss, right? Which, that's not fair. But the coach was having none of it. Get your head up. You're my guy. Let's get back in. Whatever it was that he said. So if I was, because I do think, despite the record, these teams are talent wise, these teams are relatively equal. But I think if I'm going to give an edge, I think that Barkley has that something going as well. And you add him and Jones now together, that defense, they're playing recklessly almost, in a good way. But I just think the Giants coaching, while again, don't get me wrong, the coach for the Eagles has done a spectacular job since he's gotten that job. And Doug Peterson, obviously, he's showing down in Jacksonville that he can coach as well. But I'll give a slight edge to the Giants.
Yeah. Well, and also I'll point this out. Daniel Jones has more playoff wins now than Jalen Hurts.
Well, there you go. Got to ask you about the other game that will probably be emotional, especially if DeMar shows up and is there in person. Bengals Browns. Bengals Bills. Certainly a rematch of the Monday night game that never got finished. And for a second, I want you to take DeMar out of it for a second, because I have a thought on there which I think you probably line up with. But just the matchup itself, I mean, is spectacular. Who do you like?
I think I like the Bills.
Okay.
The Bills were my preseason picks, so I'm kind of sticking with them in that way. Also, there's a few things I think it's a very even matchup. I'm not trying to take anything away from Joe Burrow. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence having that kind of steady nature. Yeah. So does Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But when I look at the Bills, I feel like they have a little bit of health going on their side. There's a couple of key offensive linemen out for Cincinnati, which I think kind of hurts them. Not that will really matter too much to Joe Burrow, but I think that could be a factor.
Mm-hmm.
I think playing at home is a huge advantage too for the Bills. But I think kind of like you had said with the Giants, I think the Bills are kind of one of those teams on one of those runs again. Because like you look at it overall, unless you're a fan of another team remaining, would anyone be really that mad if the Bills made the Super Bowl? No. They're a team that obviously had gone through a lot over these last few weeks.
Yeah.
So I think kind of with that, Josh Allen also kind of tends to have high and low games. He was not very good. We didn't really talk about the Bills and the Dolphins game. He was not good at all. I believe he had 2 or 3 interceptions. He's been kind of sloppy the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Could be an injury issue with him because I know he had that elbow thing. I also heard someone saying, before Brian Daboll got there, he was very sloppy. Daboll kind of cleaned him up, which you kind of see the same thing with Daniel Jones, not fumbling the ball, not throwing as many picks. Yeah. So I wonder if that's also an aspect. And in that case, okay, I don't know. But I also here's what I want to see. Now, with all due respect to the Jags, I think any matchup with the Chiefs is going to be a lot of fun. A rematch of Cincinnati and Kansas City will be a lot of fun. But also a rematch with the Bills and the Chiefs would be a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh.
Especially at a neutral field. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah. I'm with you on everything you said there. And I think the Dolphins, if we want to look at that, right? The Dolphins were 3 delay of game penalties away from at least having a shot at winning that game. I mean, I never saw. So you talk about. I don't remember seeing a kicker in the playoffs miss 4 extra points like the kicker for Dallas did. I don't remember a team in the playoffs having to use all 3 of their timeouts in the second half to avoid delay of game penalties, and they still got a couple of more delay of game penalties. Now I understand that quarterback is new, but he had played a couple of games. I didn't get that at all. I was very surprised that the Dolphins if they had had their timeouts, they would at least had a shot at making a run, down the field here, but they ran out of timeouts for that. So I do think Buffalo didn't play their best game, against the Dolphins. I think, like I said, the Dolphins were right there, had a shot at winning if it wasn't for the penalties. I like the Bengals. I really do. I think that the Bengals are back and healthy. They really finished, I thought, extremely well after they started out a little shaky. I think that now we can bring DeMar into the conversation here, right? I'm on the opposite end here. I think that if he comes out at the beginning of the game, that's going to be emotional for everybody, right? To see him, and especially the fans, people watching it at home, and the Bills. But football, man, we've seen it. We just saw it last week with the Chargers, where you come out almost too high and then you lose it. You run out of energy. All of that adrenaline and everything is flowing right at the beginning, and then you just lose it. There was a philosophy for years that was why there's been a lot of Super Bowl games, not in recent history, but when I was a kid in the 70s and in the 80s, the Super Bowl stunk. There were rarely any close games. I can count them on one finger, like, the Rams and Steelers and Cowboys and Steelers the second time around. There were very few close Super Bowl games. People used to say because the players would be so nervous, the adrenaline flowing at the beginning, and then it would just fall off. So I'm wondering if that would have a detriment effect on the Bills. And now listen, if he should do whatever he feels healthy enough to do and whatever he wants to do. So if he's earned that, right? So if he comes out, if he says, I feel good enough, I feel healthy enough, I want to come out, I want to wave to everybody, God bless him, man. But I'm not sure that would be the best thing for the Bills' performance there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that could be a factor. I think also, though, I feel like that could also be a big motivation.
Yeah.
I had seen somewhere that they're getting like pins or something with number 3 on there. I'll have to look. But I get what you're saying, and I think it could go against them. But it could also be motivating. I think at home, having the crowd behind you, getting everyone kind of in the mix, in the fold, could be a huge thing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think Cincy, with their run last year, none of that'll bother them, and
Yeah.
and since it was their game, they're feeling the same feelings. Glad that he's, they saw up close and personal, same things that the Bills saw. But also since he now has that experience.
You hear me?
Yeah, I paused it for a second, but you are back.
I'm gonna.
I got everything that you said, though. The Niners do have a more complete team than Dallas. You never know where God puts you, right? Brock Purdy, you think he ever expected that, especially when you have, the guy who's supposed to be the future, right? And Trey Lance, and then you got the guy that has kind of been kicked around, cast aside. Okay, we can win some games with him, but he's always going to throw the big interception. You have Jimmy G. He had to think, one of those two guys is going to be, on the sidelines. He probably never thought that he'd get the call, and it's been a few weeks now, so it's not like, the last week of the season that, he got thrown in there. He's got some experience under his belt, and his confidence just the Niners looked really good. I mean, they've looked really good since the second half. I think the Niners and Bengals, to me, looked the best in the second half. I can't discount the Chiefs finishing again at 14-3. I believe the Chiefs finished at.
Yeah.
Can't discount them, but man, oh man, Bengals and Niners to me are the teams that looked the best. And that they've matched up in the Super Bowl twice before, the Bengals and the Niners. So it'd be really interesting if they matched up again, but they, to me, look like the best teams right now. Although the Bengals didn't look great against the Ravens either. We can't forget about that. All right, it's gonna be fun. We'll probably get some short clips out there, maybe on Monday or Tuesday once this round is over, and we'll give you our opinions on there. Let's shift gears. You ready to shift gears over to baseball real quick?
Yeah.
So while I was gone, Carlos Correa and the Mets couldn't come to an agreement on his injury history, and he winds up signing with the Twins. That's a great move for the Twins, by the way. I have to tell you, I didn't feel anything. I felt like the Mets didn't need him when they signed him. I was like, okay, this is good. We'll take the extra bat. What's going to happen with Escobar? I'm not sure. He's definitely not a bench player yet in this point in his career. So they probably have to wind up trading him. Okay, A-Rod made the move to third base because of Jeter. Can Correa do that because of Lindor? I guess he can. He seems like an athletic dude. Big time postseason player. So I felt like there was some good things when the Mets signed him. It was a lot of money, a lot of years that they signed him for, but I was like, okay, let's go. He wasn't a guy that was on my radar. Me, I'm more pitching, and I wanted the other outfield bat. I felt like their infield bench was fine. I felt like their catchers now are fine. I felt like I just needed another bat in the outfield. And they got that with Mr. Tommy Pham, the fantasy league slapper of John Peterson, which was a crazy story, by the way. But anyway, because Mike Trout was involved in that too. So, but Correa, it's really interesting, Kenny, that he's had no history of this leg thing since he hurt it in 2014, right? So he hasn't had any issues with it for 8 years. And he's played at a high level. He hasn't missed many games at all for other injuries. Yet not one but two teams, pass on him. And the Giants obviously needed him more than the Mets did. But when two teams now pass on you, and Cohen wanted to get this done because he spoke about, how it got done, late at night, he was in Hawaii, the whole 9 yards. And I love Cohen. Cohen is like, I'm going to spend the money to make sure this is a great team. But then he's kind of caught, holding the bag, and they didn't want to tick off Scott Boras. So they were trying to get this done. But my gosh, if the Mets couldn't get this done, the Giants couldn't get this done. I just, there's something that we're not seeing here, and what that is, we probably won't know. But the Twins said, you know what? We have a 1-year history with him. He was fine. We need a bat. We need a star to put us back on the map here. He will be our centerpiece. And they swooped in and re-signed him. I felt numb. I don't, I wasn't upset, that's for sure. If we had him, great. But this is another one of those stories that I think the public is not going to fully know the full story. And there's a reason why two pretty smart now organizations, I couldn't always say that about the Mets organization, right? I can say that now. But the Giants have been pretty smart for the better part of the last 20 years or so. They don't make many, you don't see many trades they make or free agent signings and they're busts. The Giants usually know what they're doing with their players. There's a reason why they've been contenders, most years over the last 20 years or so. And so I don't know. What was your take?
Well, I'm going to start with this. The Carlos Correa saga that's been going on now for 2 years. Glad that it's finally over. Because he didn't sign till late in the offseason last year.
Yeah.
And then opts out, and then it's the Giants, and it's the Mets, and now it's actually the Twins. So I'm glad that that's over. Probably also mostly for him because I can't imagine the mental anguish that he had to go through. The guy signs the biggest contract for a shortstop ever. And then according to the story, he was in his hotel room in a Giants jersey getting ready for the press conference, his family's in town and everything. And then they cancel it last minute.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah.
And then obviously there's also the story of when they were able to sign with the Mets. Him and Boris were apparently like in a hotel room, and like they're like wrestling each other, so excited, like just the joy of, oh, we got a second opportunity. And then obviously that fell through. And when the Mets tried to restructure it, he was losing like half of his guaranteed money and his guaranteed years. So like I do feel for him there. I'm glad that he was able to get a $200 million contract. Good for him. What I don't get also is the leg thing, because he's been on the injured list a few times, but it's never been because of an ankle issue.
Yeah.
So like I don't understand, like kind of like what you said. I feel like there's something more that's not necessarily being said. And I know with medical stuff, there's always the HIPAA stuff, so we may never know.
Yeah.
But it does kind of seem like maybe like give it a couple years, or maybe like the next time the Twins play the Mets or the Giants, you might actually hear something coming out.
Maybe.
But it does kind of seem bizarre that way.
Yeah.
But I do think that the Mets, I think both teams, the Mets and the Giants, they're smart organizations. Doing a 12-year deal, a 13-year deal is always risky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you look at it, is there any like 8+ year deal that you're like, oh yeah, they got the value in years 9, 10, and 11? Like, look at Robinson Cano, your boy there. That didn't work out. Albert Pujols, he's a legend. Yeah. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
His last couple of years didn't work out.
No.
So like to me, especially with these long-term deals, like Aaron Judge, he's not going to be an MVP candidate at 40. I mean, I hope he is, but Derek Jeter was not exactly an elite shortstop in his last couple of years. So like, I feel like a lot of times when you're looking at long-term deals, you're paying for the front end. And I think with the Mets are going to be in a dogfight for that NL East. The Braves are still really, really good. The Phillies got better, and they made it all the way to the World Series. So I think Carlos Correa could have really helped that and kind of given that like, oh, wow, the Mets are like the real top dogs here. But that money that you would have had allotted towards Correa, you could go in other areas. There's a ton of really good free agent starting pitchers next year. Julio Urias is one of them.
Yeah.
Luis Severino.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll stay with the Yankees. The list goes on and on. And also, obviously, the big prize is going to be Shohei Ohtani, who they're already saying is probably going to get $500 million. So, like, if let's say you get Shohei instead of Carlos Correa, I think most people would take it. Yeah. I don't know if that will happen or not. I remember he didn't want to go to the Yankees because he didn't want to be in New York, but not the point. I think that in the end, like, if he wasn't going to go with the Mets, he had to go back to Minnesota. Yeah. No other team was going to take that type of risk.
No.
Houston's not signing him for a big deal. And like, if you're looking at every other team, like, let's just say the Yankees. The Yankees could have used him shortstop or third base. They're not touching him.
I don't think they even made a call. I agree. But I think also part of it is these teams sat back and said, wait a second, the Giants passed at the and now the Mets also passed. Yeah, no, we're not even gonna get involved here. You know, listen, the Twins were the only other ideal team for him to go back to. You know, and listen, the Twins finally spent some money for a change, which was good. You know, but it's a mystery. It really is. I want to go back to one point you made though, where you talked about the back end of these contracts. You and I spent some time on talking about Willie Mays' career, and one of the things that was different with Willie Mays and Hank Aaron was, remember we talked about Willie Mays in 1965. I don't remember if he won the MVP that year, but 1965, he was only 30 years old, and people made a big deal of that season because that season he hit 52 home runs, he knocked in like 110 RBIs, had a spectacular year. And it was shocking back then that at 30 years old that he did that. Hank Aaron was still hitting, 40 home runs when he was in his late 30s, what changed though over the year, he was such an anomaly, but what changed over the years is that now you do see players at least productive until they're about 35 or so. And so it's like a 5-year difference between like the 60s, 70s, and now. So, but you're signing these guys where the last years they're going to be 39, 40, 41 years old. We really haven't seen that yet. At least not from, just a regular hitter. We've seen some hitters in their late 30s still be productive, but not nearly like they were before, such as Albert Pujols, right? And we could probably, sit here and name a bunch more. Yet teams continue to spend and sign these really long-term deals. It'll be interesting to see if there's going to be a person, and even a world-class athlete like Alex Rodriguez. I know he had other factors, but even he, take the steroids out, he wasn't all that great in his last couple of years, and this is a guy that was a workout fiend, so it's going to be interesting to see, as these long-term contracts play out. Let's jump over to Hall of Fame. You said that's Tuesday. They're announcing it. I got 2 words.
Yep.
Scott Rolon. What do you got? Who are you thinking?
Well, I have up here
Go ahead.
because there's these guys that do like the Hall of Fame tracker.
Yes.
Because like how nowadays like some people will announce their ballots ahead of time. Approximately 42% of people have announced their ballot ahead of time, and according to their calculations here, 2 guys are heading towards the Hall of Fame: Scott Rolon and Todd Helton.
There you go. There you go.
So I would read off a few other names that are interesting.
Yeah.
Billy Wagner currently would be sitting at 72%.
Okay.
And it's his 8th year, so I would assume that he might sneak in. We've got Andrew Jones.
Yep.
Who's taken a huge spike up, 67%.
Yep.
Which I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. Jeff Kent is in his last year, 49%. So it looks like he's probably not making it.
Yeah. I'm surprised at that. Jeff Kent, I've been surprised at. Yep. Go ahead.
Next one that could be also a very interesting case too. Gary Sheffield.
Yeah.
Who is at 64%.
Wow. That's higher than I thought.
Yeah. And then a few guys that are on their first ballot. The leader of those guys is Carlos Beltran, who's at 56%, which that's about right.
Will the cheating scandal hurt Beltran, do you think?
I think yes and no. I think it should more than it does, but I think that a lot of people will kind of see it as well. It was more Carlos Correa, and I think it'll hurt him more, or
Right.
Jose Altuve or Alex Bregman, not necessarily Carlos Beltran. Although I feel like he was kind of the mastermind behind it.
Okay.
Yeah. A few other first ballot guys. Well, actually, basically no one else has votes. Okay, I'll just rattle these guys off. Matt Cain, 0. R.A. Dickey, 0. Jacoby Ellsbury, 0. John Lackey, 0. Mike Napoli, 0. Johnny Peralta, 0.
All very good players. All good players, but definitely not Hall of Famers.
K-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, 8.9%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention the other Rod, A-Rod, 41%.
A-Rod's not getting in. He's lumped right in with Manny Ramirez as, getting caught, and Robinson Cano's not going to get in unless, again, they change their philosophy. Of course, we've talked about Bonds and Palmeiro and Clemens. A-Rod's right in with those guys, unfortunately. McGuire, he's not. A-Rod's not going to get it, and that's a shame, because A-Rod, again, it was just a spectacular talent. It'll be really a little bit of a pivot when Scott Rolon and Todd Helton get in, because neither one were great players, but both, I think, represented good longevity. Both were consistent, in Rolon. In both of their cases, they played both sides of the game just to an outstanding level. Scott Rolon wasn't a good third baseman. He was a great third baseman. And Todd Helton was probably, I'd put him a notch below Mattingly and Keith Hernandez, and even Palmeiro I'll throw in there as defensive first baseman. Helton just was a great defensive first baseman. And, both a little different players. Rolon tried to go a little bit more for the power. Helton was spraying it, up the left, center field gap was his sweet spot. It'll be nice to see players like that get in who represented the game well, but also just put up very, very good. Helton had a couple of great years if you look, right? Rolon, I don't think ever had that signature year where you knew he was going to be the MVP, but he was so consistent, throughout his career, especially those years with the Cardinals, where he was kind of the heart and soul of that team for a while. So it'll be fun to see that. Billy Wagner's going to be interesting. I think they're looking at closers a little differently now. He was at the top of his game. When he was at the top of his game, he was one of the best closers in the league, if not the best, for a couple of years. But Beltran's the one that I'm going to be fascinated by and see what happens with him. Because numbers wise, he deserves to be in, no doubt, I think.
Yeah, one of the better switch hitters of all time.
And postseason. Postseason.
Also, I think something that'll kind of be interesting to kind of track is because how people vote this year is kind of probably also affected who's on the ballot next year.
Yeah.
Next year, there's a couple guys that are, I think there's one that's a lock. That'd be Adrian Beltre. He's got
I'm with that.
He's got 3,000 hits, and I he might be a 500, 3,000 guy.
I don't think he got 500 home runs. I don't think he got 500 home runs. He definitely had the hits.
Maybe he didn't get the 500, but 3,000 hits. That's usually a lock.
Great
Joe Mauer.
Yeah. Joe Mauer, that's going to be interesting. He's going to be a little bit like Don Mattingly, and Dale Murphy, the guys that, Mauer I thought Mauer retired early, but he had some great years, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Another one, Chase Utley, your favorite player of all time.
Yeah, I like Chase Utley, actually. So hard-nosed player. He's a throwback player. He's not getting in though, I don't think. I don't think he was good for a long time, but I don't know.
And a couple other guys probably get maybe a couple votes here and there. Jose Bautista, Bartolo Colon, Adrian Gonzalez, Matt Holliday, Victor Martinez, Jose Reyes, and the captain of the other team in New York, David Wright.
Yeah, I'd love, I'd love to see David Wright in, but he's, again, I think a little bit like Mattingly. I think, if he hadn't gotten hurt, David Wright, he would have had a Hall of Fame career. No doubt. I'm trying to think. I know the Mets announced their Hall of Fame for this year. They've been stingy at that over the years, but looks like they're starting to put some guys in. Al Leiter, and why am I forgetting the other one? Al Leiter's going in, and I know the two broadcasters, Gary Cohen and Howie Rose, are both going in. You pull that up. They made an announcement this week. It's Al Leiter, and it's another player from that era. Is it Robin Ventura? Might be
Howard Johnson.
Howard Johnson, yes. No, not from that area. Howard Johnson was a part-time player on the '86 team. Howard Johnson, did you know he had 3 30-30 seasons? And he had one season where he led the league in home runs and RBIs. He also didn't sustain it for a long period of time, but he was an excellent player. All right, ready for some inspiration?
Yeah.
All right,
let's do it.
All right, I'll do mine real quick. Your safety, Xavier McKinney. I read about this week. And it's an unbelievable story that got so little play. So when the Giants are on their hiatus, their bye week this year, he goes to ride an ATV. He gets into this horrible accident where his hand gets stuck in something. He didn't really describe it exactly how he got hurt, but 3 of his fingers get literally mangled. I don't mean to sound, gross or anything. And he was in danger of losing all 3 fingers. And, they flew him back to New Jersey. He was out of the country. They flew him back to New Jersey, and he had surgery that same day when he came back. And the doctors told him after, showed him the x-rays after, said, it's a miracle that, we were able to save your 3 fingers, that we should have, he said, your fingers were just in so many pieces that we should have just, amputated them off. But the doctors were able to save it. The real miracle part of this story, though, is that he played. There was a cast that he put on, and he played in the game against the Colts. I think he missed a couple of games, and then he played. The first game back was against the Colts. He's a safety, obviously, so he's playing defense, which obviously he's using his hand a lot. But his upbeat attitude about revealing this and talking about this. And I didn't see an article where, I don't want to misrepresent, where, he talked about God or anything like that, right? I wish he had him, because it's obviously God saved those hands, for sure. But anyway, I think it's just such inspiration that he could easily sit out for the rest of the year, or sat out the rest of the year. He didn't want to do that. He came back and played, and I think he'll probably be a factor, is a prediction. I think he'll be a factor on Sunday. We'll see. But Xavier McKinney, inspirational story, almost losing 3 fingers during this season, and he's playing. So it reminds me a little bit of Alex Smith, how he came back and played. Obviously, it took a lot longer, but he had that type of injury to his hand.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome story, and yeah, if he gets a key interception that leads to a win, pick 6
like
or something, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like the DeMar Hamlin situation, there's so many different factors and layers to it. The GoFundMe has almost $9 million now.
Amazing.
It's just crazy. But I think something that really sticks out to me is how he's kind of handled it. He's gone on a podcast recently and said, like, this whole situation has been kind of a spiritual awakening for him. That, like, he was going around telling people, like, wow, like, God is real. God is real. And, like, he had said that he's been kind of like a spiritual, but not really following Christ that much. But then, like, through this situation and kind of seeing God move through it has really reignited his faith. Like, I kind of think of like that spark that you need on like lighter fluid or something, where you see like the whoosh. Mm-hmm. And I love it, not just because like it's someone else that's following Christ, but it's someone like Josh Allen is clearly the leader in that Bills locker room. And I think it's just really cool to kind of see that, and to kind of see how, even though it's a very tragic and a very scary situation, God still moves in really powerful ways. And I remember reading recently that like sometimes it's through like those dark times, it's through those really hard times that, yes, we try to avoid seeing God, but when we see God, we can see him in a completely new and powerful light. So I love it. I hope that he continues to build on this, and it's not just a one-time thing for him. Yeah.
I love every part of that story. I know you had sent it over to me, and next week, if it's okay with you, I'd love to spend some time on this He Gets Us campaign that is going to be at the Super Bowl. I think I sent you what was sent over to me, and I ordered the t-shirt, and it's a really cool campaign. And I think that a Josh Allen story like that, and Josh Allen is high profile, right? One of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, top 2 or 3, right? I would say right now. And for him to, come out and say what he said, I think was very, very powerful. So awesome. We'll spend some time next week to talk about that He Gets Us campaign. We'll give them a little airtime, because it's I think it's going to be a great campaign during the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All right, man. Take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
Sports on the Positive Tip. Let's hope we talk about a Giants win next week.
Yeah, but we'll do it earlier. We'll talk a little earlier. We'll send some quick clips out. Hey, and check out our Facebook page, right? And to come soon, our YouTube channel. So we're going to build this thing and keep it rolling, right?
Yeah, so stay tuned.
All right.
Get bigger and better in 23.
Absolutely.